Essentially, we are in travel tech, hospitality tech, and we have two main streams of products. One being what's called the Stay API or the Stay product, and essentially what we allow for is really seamless connectivity between you as a person that, let's say you enter your accommodation when you go to a hotel. As soon as you get in your check-in, imagine, Sony knows that you're there and they're playing your favorite playlist on Spotify because they know that you've just entered the door. Similarly, on your way out, Uber can be called and hailed for you when they know that you've checked out as well. So you can think of absolutely any addition in terms of integrations that's added along the pipeline of check-in all the way through to checkout. So that's one side of the journey. And then the other side.
What is true disruption in technology, and what are some examples of emerging and disruptive tech that you're seeing in your businesses? I'll just start nice and fair this time and go left to right.
Okay. So, hi, I'm Steve. I'm the CTO at Form 3. I'm also the only person wearing the official company T-shirt tonight. So you'll know who I am. We are a payment technology firm, so we basically provide payment technology to large tier 1 banks and connect them into faster payments, back, Swift, SEPA, those kind of things. It was really interesting because we had a catch up earlier in the week and we're talking about disruption. My customer base are tier 1 banks that are largely running on mainframes that are 40 years old. So disruption to me isn't AI and blockchain and things. It's actually can we please replace these 300 50-year-old systems with something that's at least relatively modern that we can kind of build on. So I think it's quite an interesting perspective that says actually disruptive it doesn't need to be kind of blue sky thinking. It's really about can we deliver new technology, new value ultimately to the end customers.
Thanks, Yas.
Hi everyone, I'm Yasmin. Nice to be here. Thank you for having me. So I work at a company called Impala. I'm the product director there. Essentially, we are in travel tech, hospitality tech, and we have two main streams of products. One being what's called the Stay API or the Stay product, and essentially what we allow for is really seamless connectivity between you as a person that, let's say you enter your accommodation when you go to a hotel. As soon as you get in your check-in, imagine Sony knows that you're there and they're playing your favorite playlist on Spotify because they know that you've just entered the door. Similarly, on your way out, Uber can be called and hailed for you when they know that you've checked out as well. So you can think of absolutely any addition in terms of integrations that's added along the pipeline of check-in all the way through to checkout. So that's one side of the journey. And then the other side is basically us being able to aggregate hotel data and expose that to travel sellers. So traditionally, if you wanted to connect with hotels and accommodation, you would have to go through what's called a PMS, so a property management system. And in a similar fashion, they were created so many years ago, very legacy systems, and can take up to 2 to 3 months to integrate. So instead of having to wait, let's say 3 months to integrate with 2,000 hotels, you can do that in 5 minutes via an API with Impala. And so, yeah, definitely echo that there's definitely many industries there where disruptive doesn't necessarily mean the next, amazing, sexy thing. But for us, it truly means like that speed to connection that allows people to get to market quicker, basically.
Brilliant, yeah. I'm shamed by how slick these guys are, but I'll do my best. I see a member of the team, and it's nice to see you here, so welcome. So I'm Jason, I'm Chief of Product at Tracer. Tracer is a blockchain-enabled platform that works with AI and machine learning to, essentially our aim is to track all the world's diamonds from mine to finger. We're fully funded by De Beers currently, and our aim is to essentially create a digital twin of any diamond at the point that it's mined, and then to trace it through all the stages of manufacture. So when it's lasered, it's split, it's polished, and then it goes to store and it gets mounted ultimately on a piece of jewelry. We're sort of quite well into our journey, kind of at a launch stage. We've been working on it for a few years now, and we're very excited to be at the sort of point of scale up. When I think we're kind of a strange use case. I mean, I came from a financial background as well, which I guess a lot of you are, and in banking, everyone is extremely established in the way of doing things are. De Beers is a strange old creature in the sense that it did the same things the same way for 130 years until kind of we showed up, which meant that pretty much diamonds are pretty much tracked on paper with pieces of physical pieces of paper that follow them around. People keep databases with with their diamonds on, but there isn't any kind of digital way of kind of transmitting that information around. So we're looking to change that. And I think in our world, we were given the mandate not to break the industry. So if you look at some people's definition of disruption, it will be, you're going to completely change everything. We're about evolution, not revolution. But it's still, in my mind, it's disruption in the sense that we are taking people on a big journey from not being used to working digitally to not knowing what a CSV file is or how to operate a computer, to sort of say, right, okay, everything's going to be on a platform that goes end to end. So, that's where we are at. And I think, all that disruption means to me is it means significant change. And it means people changing the way they think about things. It doesn't necessarily mean throwing people out of jobs and changing who gets to capture the value in a particular industry.
I think I meet the boy band criteria, the only one not wearing trousers, so I do apologise for that. I've had two people on the hair, thanks. So I'm Frankie, I'm the head of the 10x Supercore, so just to describe a little bit what the Supercore is. So we're a cloud-native banking platform that we offer software as a service to many tier 1 banks in different parts of the world. So currently we have clients in the UK, Australia, and in South Africa. We are 5 years old. We're about 500 people, and our mission really is to make banking 10 times better for customers, banks, and society as a whole. Very similar to what Steve said, I've had 15 years in financial services. Banks spend billions of pounds basically keeping technology that's 50 years old running. I was telling a jovial story earlier that we met a client recently, and they had an incident running for 2 days, and their way to resolve that issue was to call a 73-year-old ex-colleague to help fix the problem. This predated COBOL, it predated any of these technologies. So banks historically have run their own data centers. They spend billions and billions of pounds doing so. And our mission, and what we're now achieving, is providing banks either to enter new business lines, new geographies, and run platforms that support millions of customers for single-digit millions. So our biggest client in the UK is JP Morgan Chase. They've recently launched last October in a public scale. They've attracted over 1 million customers. They've attracted billions of pounds of deposits. They're giving an interest rate which is 15 times better than the average on the market. That's millions of pounds back to the end customer. And my mission, and really why I joined, is because I really do believe there are lots of great people in financial services, but they are hampered by this legacy technology and the costs of running it. So our vision is absolutely to transform and enable banks to move to something like us, run it as a service so they can use that data to empower different financial products, experiences, pricing, and ultimately do that on a global scale. So as referenced, Chase is the biggest client you'll know in the UK. The other reference client that we can speak about is Westpac, which are a tier 1 bank in Australia as well. My version of disruption is if I can create a bank and deploy it and run it for less than £10 million a year, that's 100x greater than what banks can do today, and I think that's pretty disruptive.
Lovely, thank you. I think what's struck me getting to know the panel over the last few weeks or so has been how many of them are serving the kind of institutional large enterprise. Typically, the disruption stories you hear are we're Airbnb and we're here to put the hotel industry out of business. And actually, many of the people here are actually helping institutions to compete. But obviously, the propositions that you're offering are also of value to some of the challenger brands that are coming in, particularly in the fintech space. I'd just love your thoughts and perceptions on how you manage the tension between supporting the old school whilst also enabling their competition. Anyone want to volunteer?
Okay, I'll go first. I think at least in our experience, within financial services, it's kind of a good example, I guess, of the split between the very established traditional players who've been around for hundreds of years and neobanks, challenger banks who maybe have been around for less than 5. I think what you're seeing is a convergence in terms of where they want to get to in terms of technology. So there's nobody saying, I don't really want to go into the cloud. I don't really want to know about data and AI or anything. It's really about how do you enable customers on the journey to get there. Digital banks are that much further ahead, which means that they can kind of get on board that much faster. Big established banks are further behind. They have a lot more work that they need to do to catch up. But fundamentally, they're all trying to get to the same space, I think.
I think from our perspective. So we're not yet, we haven't yet announced, but our smallest client is a seed-funded startup in Australia. So we're due to announce that shortly. And then we serve arguably the biggest bank in the Western world. So the platform is designed to scale from the smallest customer with a big ambition through to the largest organizations and everything in between. I think the key part of kind of the mission statement, as I referenced, is I really do believe if you can make it better for organizations rather than banks, because it doesn't necessarily have to be banks. We have a client known as Afterpay, relatively famous if you know kind of the Australian and American markets. That's via Westpac, because they offer banking as a service to them as a client. Very much challenger, 5 or 6 years old. I just sold to Square for 40 billion, but providing significant services to end customers in that market, and kind of led the way alongside Klarna in the buy now, pay later space. But because the nature of the cloud is you can scale from 1 user, 10 users, 1 million customers, and do that in a very elastic way. So we want to provide the barriers to entry in the way that AWS to some extent have kind of championed this from the very beginning. They have everything from, do you mean a junior engineer who's 13 that's starting up, who's doing computer science and playing around, and then they've got the biggest brands in the world, and they allow this kind of constant scale. So I think our ambition is absolutely to offer similar. We'll likely do the real small end through partners, because we offer each environment slightly different to Steve. We had dinner a few months ago, and I was very jealous of their single platform, and we run it many different ones. So there is a economic point for us that we need to overcome. But ultimately, the elasticity of a single user, very niche use case is where we'd like to explore, but also a seed-funded early-stage company as a client, and it does show that variety that we're hoping to achieve.
So for us in the US, we're not necessarily in fintech, although we do have our own payment provider and flows. For us, it typically is understood that there's only like several massive players. You go to Expedia, you go to hotels.com, you go to booking.com. If you're in APAC, then you're Rakuten, of which we've actually partnered with, and that was released today as well. Now, typically they will, and 5-10 years ago, very much everything's in-house. We do our own direct acquisition of everything. But the trends that's moved is, we're happy to take this elsewhere, because if you're trying to balance out three months of integration with, let's say, 10 engineers versus 2 engineers in 1 week, there's really, it's a no-brainer, to be honest. And what we allow for is essentially anyone can be a travel agent. Essentially, you can start your own website. And typically, if you had tried, let's say 2-3 years ago, and you tried to integrate with a property management system, they would decline you, because you have to be able to prove you're going to do X amount of bookings. You've gone through a certification as well, most of which the average developer or even non-technical person might not pass. And so we're essentially able to infiltrate the market that way.